Should you buy a house right now or wait 6 months? What about a year from now? If you've asked yourself any of these questions lately, you're not alone. The Canadian housing market has been a roller coaster, and everyone from first-time buyers to seasoned investors is trying to figure out what happens next. Well, I've got some answers for you. The Canadian Real Estate Association just released their forecast for 2025 and 2026. And let me tell you, it's not what most people expect. There's a dip coming, but also a major rebound. And depending on where you live in Canada, your reality could be completely different from your neighbor 3 provinces over. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to expect and how to plan your next move. Let's be honest, predicting the real estate market can feel like trying to catch smoke. One day prices are soaring, the next day everyone's talking about a crash. It's exhausting, right? But here's the thing, we don't have to guess. Organizations like the Canadian Real Estate Association track actual data, analyze real trends, and provide forecasts that are far more reliable than the speculation you see in sensational headlines. And their latest forecast tells us something really interesting. 2025 is going to be a year of slight cooling, while 2026 is shaping up to be a strong comeback year. So whether you're thinking about buying your first home, selling a property, or just trying to understand where your biggest investment is headed, this forecast has critical information for you. Let's break it down, province by province, so you know exactly what's coming. First up, what does 2025 look like for Canada overall? According to CREA, we're looking at approximately 473,090 home sales across the country. Now, that might not mean much on its own, but here's the context. That's a 1.1% decrease compared to 2024. A decline. But before you panic, let me explain why this is happening and why it's actually not as bad as it sounds. Early in 2025, there was what CREA calls tariff chaos and economic uncertainty. Remember all that talk about trade tensions and economic headwinds? Well, that made a lot of potential buyers nervous. They hit pause. They decided to wait and see what would happen before making one of the biggest financial decisions of their lives. And you know what? That makes total sense. But here's the key detail most people miss. Since March 2025, sales activity has been on a steady upward climb. That means those buyers didn't disappear, they just delayed their plans. They're coming back, and that's exactly what you want to see in a healthy market. Now, what about prices? The national average home price is forecast to drop by 1.4%, landing at around $676,705. Again, that's a modest decline, and it's largely driven by adjustments in 2 major markets, British Columbia and Ontario. These are expensive provinces, and when they cool down, they pull the national average down with them. But here's what's fascinating. Many other provinces are actually expected to see price gains between 4 and 8% in 2025. So while Vancouver and Toronto might see some relief, places like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Newfoundland could be heating up. This is why the national average can be misleading. Canada is huge, and each region tells its own story. Let's zoom in on the provinces, because this is where things get really interesting. British Columbia and Ontario, the cooling giants. BC is expected to see a 4.1% drop in sales and a 3.1% decrease in average home prices, bringing them down to about $951,000. Ontario is looking at a 3.7% decline in sales and a 3.4% drop in prices, with the average home sitting at around $839,000. Now, if you're in Vancouver or Toronto and you've been priced out for years, this might actually be good news. A slight cooling could create opportunities for buyers who've been waiting on the sidelines. Alberta is a mixed bag. Alberta's forecast is really interesting. Sales are expected to drop a 6.8%, but prices are projected to rise by 3.5%, averaging around $511,000. What does this tell us? It suggests a tighter market, possibly with more demand for higher-priced homes. Even with fewer sales, the homes that are selling are commanding better prices. Quebec is a standout, with a projected 9.1% increase in sales and a 4.6% jump in prices. Saskatchewan is seeing an 8.8% price increase, Manitoba 7.3%, and Newfoundland 7.7%. These provinces are where the action is in 2025. If you're an investor or someone considering a move, these numbers should be on your radar. What's driving this growth? Regional economic strengths, migration patterns, and varying supply-demand dynamics. When Toronto and Vancouver get too expensive, people look elsewhere, and these provinces benefit. Now let's talk about 2026, because this is where things get exciting. CREA is forecasting a significant rebound. National home sales are expected to jump to 509,479 properties. That's a 7.7% increase from 2025. To put that in perspective, this would be the highest level of sales activity since 2021. We're talking about crossing the 500,000 mark again, which signals a return to a much more dynamic and active market. And prices? The national average home price is forecast to climb by 3.2%, reaching approximately $698,622. This would mark the sixth consecutive year where the average price hovers around the $700,000 mark. That tells us something important: stability. The market isn't going wild like it did during the pandemic years, but it's also not crashing. It's finding a more sustainable equilibrium. So what's driving this 2026 rebound? Remember all those buyers who paused in early 2025? They're coming back with pent-up demand. Economic uncertainty tends to stabilize over time, and when people feel more confident, they make moves. Plus, if interest rates stabilize or even decline slightly, that could add fuel to the fire. The key takeaway here is resilience. The Canadian housing market has proven time and time again that it can weather storms. A slight dip followed by a strong recovery is actually a sign of health, not weakness. Let's look at which provinces are leading the charge in 2026. British Columbia, the comeback kid. BC is forecast to see a massive 12.6% increase in sales, with prices rising modestly by 1.8% to around $968,000. After a tough 2025, this is a major rebound. If you're considering buying in BC, 2025 might be your window before competition heats up again. Ontario, back in action. Ontario is expected to see a 10.4% jump in sales and a 2.6% increase in prices, with the average home at around $861,000. That's a strong return for Canada's largest market. Other provinces, steady growth. Most other provinces are showing solid gains as well. Alberta up 5.1% in sales, Quebec up 4%, Nova Scotia up 6.1%. Even smaller markets like PEI are seeing growth, with a projected 7.9% increase in sales. The 2026 forecast paints a picture of balanced, sustainable growth across the country. It's not a frenzy, but it's healthy momentum. So what should you actually do with this information? If you're a buyer, 2025 might offer some opportunities, especially in markets like BC and Ontario, where prices are expected to soften slightly. But don't wait too long. 2026 is shaping up to be much more competitive. Get your finances in order now, get pre-approved for a mortgage, and be ready to move when you find the right property. If you're a seller, timing matters. If you're in a cooling market and need to sell in 2025, be realistic with your pricing. But if you can afford to wait, the 2026 rebound might bring better returns. Talk to a local real estate agent who understands your specific market. If you're an investor, look at the regional variations. Provinces showing consistent growth in both sales and prices, like Quebec, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan, might present attractive opportunities. Diversification is your friend. For everyone, remember that these are forecasts, not guarantees. Unexpected economic shifts, policy changes, or global events can always impact the market. Stay informed, consult with professionals, and make decisions that align with your personal financial situation and goals. The Canadian housing market in 2025 and 2026 is going to be a story of pause and rebound, a brief cooling period followed by renewed momentum. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, understanding these trends gives you a massive advantage. You're not guessing anymore. You're making informed decisions based on real data. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more real estate insights. Drop a comment below and let me know, are you planning to buy, sell, or hold in the next couple of years? I'd love to hear your strategy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.